at what I call essentials of export, and we'll be looking at all the things you need once you have a product ready for export. Assignment of last time, we don't need it anymore. I believe and I hope most of you have figured out what it is that you are going to be dealing with. So now, export, essentials of export. We're going to start with the laws on export. Basically, when I mean laws, we're not going too legal. We are just going to look at what you need as a legal requirement before you start export. And I'm going to take it from two sides. And when I say legal requirements, it's just, it's easy to follow, just what you need to do. From the Nigerian side, first of all, you need to have an export license. And the good thing about the export license is that you can get it within 3 days without paying a single naira. Well, you pay something to get it, but when I mean you don't pay, typically in Nigeria you have to bribe, but no. The people at NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, have made it so easy to get your export license. Their office is at Apapa. I think that's the regional office for Lagos, and they have offices virtually all over the country. So go there, walk in there, tell them you need an export license. If you are really serious about export, you are going to need to have a business name. So obviously register a company. It mustn't be a limited liability company, but I'm not too sure about that. I think let me take that back. It has to be a limited liability company, but that can be verified. So you need to have a business name registered with CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission. You need to have the export license from NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Now let's get it right. NEPC, the process of getting this license is very, very easy. You don't have to worry too much. Just walk into their office and they take care of it. I'm going to just give me 1 second. Let me, connect something, please. Okay, sorry, just making sure that I have enough power on my battery. So again, like I said, the key things you need, your business name registered with CAC and your export license from NEPC. Again, don't be afraid to do any of this. You can register a business name cheaply. You can also get your export license cheaply. Unfortunately, those are the laws. It's very important we do that. Now, depending on how far you are going with the export, the volume that you are looking at starting with, you may need to always talk to your bank to get what we call the Nigerian Exports Proceeds Form. This is very funny because not a lot of banks know about this. But if you are starting on a small level, you don't need to worry about that. But when you start going on a bigger level, then you need to really talk to your bank, getting the Nigerian Export Proceeds Form. And then also, depending on what you are exporting, for certain type of products, you may need other certain license. Obviously, for food products, I think NAFDAC and SON is involved. You must have your NAFDAC registration if you are doing food products. Very, very important. And then there has to be some analysis on the food that you are doing, because if you're exporting things to the US, they want to see the breakdown of the composition, the calories, the carbohydrates, the fat content of the food. So food is a very special class. Doing a lot of these things is not that difficult. I think in our 5th series, we're going to treat food. And it's going to be a very, very interesting class. There's a lot of misunderstanding on food because a lot of people get it wrong. And those are some of the things that we'll be dealing with. Then if you are doing artwork, you need to get a license from the museum. I think it's the Nigerian Museum Association or something like that. I'll look up the exact details of this and post it in my link later on. But that is just to be sure that the artwork you're exporting is not one of those valued artworks from Nigeria. So once you have that, it clears you for export. So those are the key things you need to worry about. Again, requirements from Nigeria. So I hope you guys can see me. So Nigerian requirements. So we have a business registration, and you get that from CAC, and any lawyer can do it for you. Just call up your lawyer, they can do it for you. And then you need your export license. That's the corresponding one. This is from NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. If you are in Lagos, their office is at Apapa. And if you're in any other place, it's very easy to get. Don't look at it as a big deal. And then obviously food products, you're going to need NAFDAC and SON. I think SON will do some analysis of the food, make sure it is safe and all that. And then if you are into artwork, you need something from the Nigerian Museum. So these are some of the key requirements you need when you are dealing with, from the Nigerian side. Now, from the US side, again, I'm going to talk more since I'm talking on the legal, I'll talk more on the AGOA requirements. Because again, the focus of what I want to do is to push people to export based on AGOA. And AGOA is not just AGOA that, because a lot of times we don't know that we are exporting and losing money. So what I mean by that is, you have a lot of people who just, they carry goods to the airport and they're exporting every time. And because their shipping company or their export agent does not know the rules, they are not documenting these things in the right way for them to get duty waiver over there. So imagine if you export maybe a million naira worth of goods and you are being charged 10% duty in the US, that's about 100,000. And if you've exported maybe 20 times in a year, that's over 2 million you have lost, lost just because of wrong documentation. So it's very, very important to understand this. Now, I'm going to talk about two things. Now, before AGOA, there's what we call GSP. GSP stands for Generalized System of Preference. So what GSP is basically the world came together, United Nations, and they said, look, you have some countries that are not developed. Let's give them duty-free preferential tariff of certain products into the developed countries. When you look at some of these things, you would think the developing countries are actually helping us. So let's take, for example, cocoa. Ivory Coast makes what? About $3 billion from cocoa export every year. They export it to Mars, the chocolate brand. And then those people convert it to chocolate. And from that $3 billion they exported, they are making about 16, 17, $18 billion a year. So what is it that you are seeing? Even though they are saying, no, it's duty-free to encourage us, they are just using Africa to get the raw materials they need. They now process those raw materials and send it back. So when we talk about export, what I hope a country like Nigeria will be able to do will be to take not only the raw materials, convert it, process it, and then let's export those finished products. That is what makes sense. So again, the GSP, Generalized System of Preference, looks at a list of items that is duty free for countries, certain type of underdeveloped countries. There are some countries that are there eligible. They have two classifications. You have the A and the A plus. You don't need to worry too much about this. Nigeria is classed under A, and then the less developed countries are classed under B. But if you ask me, I think some of the countries that they even put as A plus, they even put as A plus are doing better than Nigeria. But anyway, these are things that were there before. So GSP basically, now the knowledge of GSP is that it can help you not just the US, but if you decide to do Europe, But again, I focus on the US. So now, because Nigeria is in A under the GSP, and the less developed countries are in A plus, there may be certain products that Nigeria does not have eligibility to fall under the GSP. Now, the good thing about that is where AGOA comes in. Nigeria falls under AGOA, is eligible under AGOA, and so those products that may not be duty free under the GSP for Nigeria may be duty free under AGOA. So let's look at AGOA. AGOA is basically a Trade and Development Act enacted in 2000, and is basically to promote trade between America and sub-Saharan Africa by offering duty-free waivers to products from sub-Saharan Africa, of which Nigeria is a member. It's a legislation which Nigeria has not taken full advantage of, and again, we need to really start looking at the products that are eligible. Somebody asked before, I said go to agoa.info and you will see a list of all the products that are eligible. But again, anything that you see locally that is of value, go there. There's a high probability it is there. Like I said the last time, how many people know that soursop leaves that falls at the back of your house can give you enormous money? There's another one that I also see requests for, alligator pepper. When the chiefs are around, they are doing this alligator pepper. A lot of pharmaceutical companies use alligator pepper for some of the drugs, and those things are very expensive. If you can get a container load of alligator pepper, you are in money. So some of these things we look at, take for granted, they are actually very, very, very valuable. AGOA covers a lot of things, foodstuff, so many things. So again, like I said, if you look at the rules, there are about 6,900 products in AGOA as of now. Go to agoa.info, and about 1,800 products in GSP in AGOA. So again, the key things you need to look at when you are exporting. So now I'll be looking at the USA requirements, and we're going to look in depth into AGOA, USA. So I'm going to just focus on AGOA because that covers everything to make export easy for you and more profitable. Your country must be eligible. Nigeria is eligible. Again, US has criteria to put some countries, but Nigeria is eligible. The product must be eligible, so check that list, agoa.info. It must meet requirements of origin. So that is where we are going to take a good look at it. And by looking at it, you will begin to see the possibilities that is inside AGOA. It must be imported directly, so you cannot say you want to get duty free under AGOA and you tell your customer to ship it from China to US and say, oh, because I'm from Nigeria, do that duty free. No, the product must originate from Nigeria. So the airway bill, everything should start from Nigeria and into the US. But there are, so that's it. The importer must claim AGOA when filing the entry document. And again, this is the most important thing. The most important. the importer, you must claim AGOA. So when we say the importer is the person receiving it in the US, the documentation must be filed so that they are saying, oh, I am claiming this, bringing this under AGOA. So very, very important. So this is where we need to deal between you and the importer. So AGOA countries, I'm not going to go into that. Just know that Nigeria, where you belong, is a member. So let me list the rules again because we are going to go into that in depth. So country must be eligible. And then the product must be eligible. And then the origin, it must be origin eligible. And I will explain more on this because when you understand the eligibility under the origin, it opens up your mind to so many things that you have to do. It must be imported or exported directly from an eligible country. So it must be exported direct from eligible country. I know some of you will say, I didn't sign up to be in the classroom, but if you don't understand this, you will be losing a lot of money. And then importer must claim AGOA. Must claim AGOA. So on all this, the only thing that, so when we say importer must claim AGOA, companies like what I'm teaching you, you can decide to use any company to ship. But for us, if you have the volume that warrants us doing it under AGOA, we will help you take care of this, So this is straightforward. Country must be eligible. The product must be eligible. So you go under the agoa.info, check the product, is it eligible? The origin eligible, so this is the only one that is confusing. It must be exported directly from the eligible country, from Nigeria, and the importer must claim AGOA. So let's take an in-depth look at what this origin eligibility means, because if you understand it well, you begin to see so many opportunities to make money under AGOA. So I will do that under here so that we have everything on the board. Eligible origin. So what do we mean by this? So when we say eligible origin, AGOA has a rule that before you can claim anything under AGOA, the declared value of the item, at least 35% of the value of the item must be from the eligible country. So what do I mean by that? So for example, if you are exporting plantain, the plantain came from Nigeria. If you convert it to potato chips, it also came from, everything is done in Nigeria, so there's no question about that. Now, what if you are exporting clothes of which the fabrics were not made in Nigeria? Say for example, they were made in China. So you brought the clothes from China, okay, and then you did some sewing and certain things to it, and then you are exporting it. When the US Customs looks at that product, are they going to say, oh, I'm going to give you duty free on this? Remember, we can claim as much as we want, but it is still under their final say to determine if you are going to get it duty free. All right, so that is what we need to look at, and I'll explain that more with an example. So basically what they are trying to say is that the value of the product must have been, you must have added value to that item in the eligible country before it's exported. So let's look at maybe what example will I use? Maybe a company that manufactures asbestos, for example, because a lot of these things are eligible. So they imported the materials, the raw materials for that asbestos from, say, China or Turkey. So cost of material, so let's say the cost of the material is equal to, say, $100, right? Okay. And I'll use a very simple example. We go deeper into this in the main course. So the cost of the material from China is $100. So let me make it clearer. So obviously China is not eligible. So it's from China and it's 100. So the cost of the material from China is 100, right? Now you bring it into Nigeria and then you add other materials from Nigeria. So let's say the cost of local materials in this case from Nigeria is equal to, say, the same $100, right? And then I'll use a very simple example. Now, when we are talking about cost of local materials, there's a lot of things you can factor in. You can factor in your labor cost, because that goes into making the product. So let's say labor cost is equal to $30, right? So, and you are going to sell this product. When I mean sell, this is the declared value for, let me just put value there. And you are going to sell it for $500. Now, does this meet the 35% requirement? The 35% requirement says that whatever you use in the country of origin must make up at least 35% of the cost. So if you look at this, cost of local materials is 100, labor cost is 30. That is what? 130. So 130, the rest is your profit. So the what do you call it? 130 out of 100 is obviously more than your 35%. So that tells you this product is very much AGOA eligible. Okay. Now, if the cost of the material from China had been maybe 300%, it becomes a different case. So let's do the math again. So what value did we add to this product? We added a value. It was originally 100. We now added a value of 130 to it, right? So the whole thing now comes out to about 230. If you look at this 130 is already more than 35% of this. So obviously this is eligible. But if you bought something $100 from China and then you just put it inside the next boat and you ship it to US, that is 100% China. You didn't really do anything to it in Nigeria. So that will not be eligible. So this is just a simple explanation. So what does this show you? It shows you that there is a lot of potential in export. I can basically go, how will I call it now? I can basically go to get things locally from various places and then add value to it and then export it. Now there is also another funny rule that we also need to know. There's what we call, I don't know how to describe it. Will I call it stacking of origin? Or accumulation of origin. So accumulation of origin means if Ghana is eligible for AGOA and I bring something from Ghana as my raw materials, and I do something to it in Nigeria, because Ghana was eligible, Nigeria was eligible, even if Ghana did 100% of that work, it is eligible for AGOA. I hope this is making sense. So that's what you call a cumulation of origin. Because they are both AGOA countries, you can bring things from there, package it whichever way you want, and just export, and it is still going to be eligible. So those are the key things we need to know. Again, like I said, AGOA is a very big rule that we need to know. And there are also certain rules that applies to textile. Textile is one that I think Nigerians need to take a good advantage of. There's something that the US has, they call it, I think it's a textile visa stamp. And it has to be done by the Nigerian customs, but that is a long story. So I think that is enough for the regulations. The reason I brought that up is so that you begin to see big opportunities. So as you go to Amazon, you see something and you think, oh, we can't make this in Nigeria, or this is not, we can't make this 100% in Nigeria. It doesn't mean that it's not eligible. So if you get the raw materials from a non-eligible country and you are able to add substantial value to it from Nigeria, also add Nigerian products, add Nigerian labor, it becomes eligible once you've passed that 35% rule. It's not just local things that is eligible. So that is one. Now I'm going to go into the actual process of the shipping. So basically, you now have the products that you want to ship. What are the requirements for you to ship? This is where we typically have a lot of problems with people who want to export. And there are three things I'm going to be looking at here. Basically, well, it's more than three, but I'm going to be looking at the documentation. So I'll call it, I believe we can get rid of this. So let's look at the export process itself. The export process. So one is, so what are the things you need? One, we'll talk about the documentation. And this is where we have the biggest problem with Nigerians trying to export. So when I mean documentation, you are not going to bring things and say, oh, just export it. We need to know what you're exporting. US Customs need to know what you're exporting. What is in that box? We have people who just bring any type of items and they just say, no, it doesn't work that way. Then we need to look at the packaging. How do you package it? It needs to be packaged correctly, and the labeling. This is not too important for you. But let's look at documentation. So when we talk about documentation, what are we looking at? So when we talk about documentation, there are a couple of things, two things that are very important when you are exporting with respect to documentation. One is what we call the commercial invoice. So for documentation, I'll put it here. So for documentation, you need one commercial invoice. It's always so difficult, as easy as this is difficult for Nigerians to do. And the other one is we call a packing list. Flash manifest. Now, why is this important? You don't just do it anyhow, and you get to see shortly. So commercial invoice basically tells the US Customs, this is what I have, this is the value, and it enables them to determine the duty on it. So for example, let me give you, this is a sample commercial invoice of an actual product. And one of the things I'll probably do, I'll take a snapshot of it when I'm uploading it in the YouTube channel. You can go there and take a sample of it. So what are the things that we need in commercial invoice. They are said, this is not so difficult. You can use Microsoft Word to generate your commercial invoice, but you just need to make sure it has certain things. I'll just rule it like a table because I think that is easier for people to understand. So for us, what we developed for commercial invoice is something of this nature. It's always good to have a serial number so that it shows all the items that you are dealing with. So, 5 items. Then one, we always like to put the product. So an example of the product can be what? Cloth, right? It can be, you can just put cloth. And then we always like to put a description. Again, the essence of this is so that the customs officer knows what it is. So imagine somebody who is shipping drums. You'll be surprised. Some US people, customs, they don't know what a drum is. And they look at the drum, it doesn't look like the drum they use. So the description can be children's cap. Okay, so imagine you are making cap that children use. So that is the description. The next one we want to see is the quantity. So how many items, what is the quantity of this? So I'm sending 50 of those children's cap. Very, very important. Please, if you follow this process, you will not have issues. A lot of items coming from Nigeria are either held at the customs here, and for a long time it is so difficult for them to get it out because the people just, you now have customs telling you to bring this and bring, and after 3 to 4 days they begin to charge you storage. So you need to have the quantity. It is important to have the weight. And when you are putting weight, please specify the weight unit. So if it's weight and you are using kg, specify that it is kg. Don't just put weight and then you put a value 30. No, specify the weight. Let me use a realistic weight. 50 children's cap will probably weigh about 12 kg. So probably not up to that. That's more realistic. So we put there. Now, what is the most important thing? The most important thing of all, the composition. Now, I'm shipping cloth. What is that cloth made of? Example, 70% cotton, 30% polyester. Why is this important? Because when customs, let me finish the other one. Well, anyway, when they are evaluating how much is potential duty on this has a different value. So the composition is very important. Now, we now talk of what? Unit price. Things like this, you can easily get the composition. So say each one is $2 and then total price, and then obviously it's $100, right? So it's always good to put, I will always advise country of origin. So obviously Nigeria. 1 second, let me be sure my video is still shooting. Okay, so we're doing well. Okay, so country of origin is obviously Nigeria. So these are some of the things that are very important. We need to see on your commercial invoice. You know, a lot of times people don't know what the clothes are made of. You know, just call the manufacturer, you know, they will be able to give you something. What else? Maybe another example, say I'm shipping a drum. So the product is a drum. Some custom officers may not know what is drum. So you can say it's what? An African, so that's a description, musical instrument. Okay? Quantity is 1. The weight maybe 15 kg. What is it made of? You can say leather. What is the unit cost? 50. What is the final cost? 50. And it's also from Nigeria. You know, so these are things that will help us. This is the commercial invoice, you know. Very easy. The key thing is that we are looking for there is the product, and then give a description that makes it easy for anybody to know what it is, you know. And then you have the quantity, the weight, the composition. Composition is very important. That is what they use to determine what the duties will be. Unit price, total price, and then the country of origin. So obviously on your commercial invoice, you will always have a, let me clean this so that I think you all have taken that already. You must have who, you know, it's an invoice, so you have to have who the sender is, the details here, and then you have the receiver. So you can go use Microsoft Word, make a template of this, and then, you know, some things you can include is, so under here you can say maybe number of boxes, but this is not too critical in the commercial invoice. You can put 4, but it doesn't hurt to put it, and then maybe signature of whoever did it, you know, so make it legal, a sign there. So this is a sample commercial invoice for all purposes. There's no fixed way of doing it. The important thing is the content of the invoice. So for documentation, I said 1, we need the commercial invoice. I'm going to clean this off. The next thing you need, and again, like I said, the video will be available on YouTube, you know, 2, 3, 4 days later. But it's always good you are here. So at the last minute, you will be able to ask questions for anything you don't understand. And then the other one is what? The manifest or packing list. Packing list. So this one will typically ship it attached to the box so that they know what it is. So when we talk about manifest or packing list, the things of interest there, always I always like to put, so again, you know, let's start with the sender. So you put the name, you know, details, receiver, put the name details, and then we have the serial number. Same thing as we did before, product. You can also give a description. Okay. The only difference here is that in the packing list, we don't put the prices. And then we have the quantity. Okay. And then we have the, say, the weight. And like I said, always specify your unit, weight in kg. And then we have the important thing here that we're looking for packing list is the number of, say, boxes. Because packing list looks at all the boxes you have and tells them that, oh, this box has this box. So if they are interested in a particular product, they know the box to go to, instead of them ransacking your whole shipment. Number of boxes 1, and then size of box. So So it's 24 inches by 24 by 24. And then, we can also put the composition. So from your, and then country origin. So this is a sample packing list. The essence of this is for them to say, oh, so if I have, say, product is Adire, so description is Nigerian cloth. You can say you have 50 of them. The weight, 40 kg. Number of boxes is 1. The composition is maybe 70% cotton and maybe 30% polyester. And Nigeria also for the origin. So the essence is that at the end of the day, when they see all the boxes that you are shipping, it enables them to know if they are interested in a particular product. They can just say, oh, that product is in this 6x6. They go in there and look at it. So that is what they want with respect to packing. So once you have these two things correctly done, we shouldn't have much problem with shipping. This is what we need from you when you are coming to drop off your item. Every other thing, we will handle it, or whichever shipping company you decide to use. The other things, obviously the shipping label. So the shipping label will be done by the company who is shipping it for you. It's just going to have the name of who is going to, obviously. And then airway bill, the company will also do that, so you don't need to worry. And then the last one is the clearing. So once you have this done correctly, clearing over there becomes very easy, in the sense that, you've done your documentation correctly, and when you look at a typical clearing document, oh, I have it somewhere. Look at a typical clearing document. It's just going to be a mirror copy of all this, showing all the various invoices. So one thing we need to also get clear is that just like in every country, clearing agents are the ones that will clear your goods through customs. In the US, you can't just go to a customs officer and say, oh, clear my goods. Well, you can go directly, but most times you have to use a clearing agent. So when you see an invoice for shipping, the cost for the clearing agent to do that work will always be there. So because we are saying it's duty free, it doesn't mean that, oh, once you've paid for the shipping, once it gets to the US, they just, no. Somebody has to go to the airport, file all the clearing documents, work hand in hand with customs, and then they bring out and then when they bring it out, they have to, send it somewhere. So that cost for the clearing, you will always see. But the good thing about that is, and again, that is where volume comes in. Most companies will try to combine items from different people, so they pay one clearing charge, and then they spread it amongst everybody, and that way it lowers the cost of everything. So this is really the essentials. If you know you are ready to go, you know the products you want to ship, you've made up your mind, you found a buyer, simply go there, and that's it. So I'm going to switch